What's up, guys? Well, let's pull up the chat here. Buck, first guy in the chat. Donde está Dusty? Good question, man. He's been kind of MIA recently, you know. Just not a dedicated viewer like most of you guys are. Let me see if I can adjust my camera here because it always gets messed up, man. Because yeah, there we go. It's better. I always bump it with my foot, unfortunately. Coog, what's up, man? How did your quants do in comparing bracket predictions versus what was released yesterday? I think we did pretty solid job. I think some of the decisions made by the committee were just like completely ridiculous. Like Virginia being left out, unbelievably ridiculous. Again, like 16 and 11 in ACC, and they missed a massive series with Florida State due to a shooting. And somehow, I guess that wasn't included. And what I read was that if they had just won one game against Virginia, their RPI is like in 43 or something like that. I think his 15 minutes of live stream fame messed him up. Yeah, I think I might have been up a little bit too late for him as well. I don't know if he can hang that late at night like we're used to here, but we're gonna still pumping out the content though, so that's fine. We will be posting our first podcast later today, probably after the stream. I'm gonna get that sent out to all the platforms, so that'll be fun. But I do think it's interesting. Again, I mean, I know we talked about it last night a little bit, but just the amount of just ridiculous answers from like the committee chairman. So much of that interview, I was just standing there and sitting there listening to it and just thinking like he's just not saying anything. Again, like Oregon State being a national seed. I just, again, there's no other way. There's just no way to justify that at the end of the day. There's no way to justify Oregon State being a national seed. There's plenty to justify them being a host. National seed, ridiculous. Like if Oregon State's a national seed, Florida State should be a national seed. Like that's just the reality. Do you think D1 baseball not calling out the influence of the 80s and the committee to favorable hosting subs speaks to them being too close to the process? Possibly, right? And it's understandable in some ways because again, like if they're going to have sources and they're going to be able to get really good stories and break stories first and all that, they are going to have to, like there's going to be lines they can't cross. There's going to be like things they can say, but if they do, will hurt their relationships with said sources. Again, I think, the idea that, Florida State gets matched up with Oregon State, interesting. Their AD's on the committee. Florida does not get sent to an ACC host. Interesting. Their AD's on the committee. Southern Miss gets a host. Interesting. Their AD is on the committee. So I think as long as this is how we're going to do it, if this is how the NCAA tournament is going to be decided, that's all we get. I mean, we're not going to ever have every year we're going to have stuff come up where it's like, that's interesting. That's interesting. And it's because when your AD is on the committee, like they are completely motivated to give their team like the best path to Omaha. And Florida State couldn't have picked a better path. You're matched up against Oregon State, who again, I do think is probably one of the weaker hosts in the tournament. And so Florida State, you're feeling pretty great about that. You're not worried of going if you're Florida State, you're not worried of going to Corvallis for a regional, right? Corvallis is not known to have crazy, outrageous, intoxicated fans yelling at your players all game. But the SECs, they're known for that. They're known for that. So Florida State gets a very favorable matchup regional-wise. I don't think Florida State has an easy regional by any stretch of imagination. Northeastern is very good. But it's very easy to look at, how everything kind of everything shook out or shaked out or whatever you want to say, and understand that, okay, that makes sense based on this AD, that AD, everything like that. I mean, it's just, again, it's not hard to read between the lines when you do that. I think Virginia obviously got hosed. I think UConn got hosed. And again, in this kind of environment, I think Mike Rooney made a good point. He said, this is why I think we need to go to like a 68 team structure that I've talked to you guys before, where basically, there's a few play-in games before, or it's an extra round or something. I can't remember his exact structure, but essentially, it allows for that, because there always does seem to be in a situation like there's 4 teams that probably should make the tournament that don't. So why don't we just make it a 68 team structure and then go from there? And again, the extra 4 teams, there's a little bit of a different structure for it, so it makes sense getting all the way to Omaha. How many super chats left? We are 6 away. 6 away from super chats. We need 6 more $10 super chats. Do we have the list of the committee members? Yeah, Buck, you can go to D1 and you can see it. You can see the full list. Buck says, so then we can't call them journalists. Okay, fine. Do we have the list of the... Okay. Where do you find the list of committee members? D1 baseball. If you just type in like NCAA baseball tournament committee members, you'll be able to find it. And do they have their school affiliations along with it? Yes, they do. Yeah, but then there will be another 4 that didn't get in. So where do you draw the line of teams? I think, well, Coog, I think the reality is that like after the first 4 out, it becomes pretty easy to say like that team shouldn't be in, that team shouldn't be in. And again, some years that'll be more difficult, but based on kind of the last, again, 5 or 6 years, there's always like College of Charleston last year, they should have been in, they didn't get in. After those first 4 out, so like this year would be Virginia, UConn, was Xavier in? And like one more. All of a sudden, you're like, okay, that team, yeah, could they be in? But like, they probably shouldn't be in. So it's just a little bit easier. The committee feels like an old boys network doing favors for each other. Chair was asked about that a week ago. He said they recuse themselves when their school is up. They can, but still, but this still can go on. Yeah, they recuse themselves after they've had meetings with everybody and all that stuff. Like, again, let's just be real here. They do make deals. That's how it works. Sometimes they're making deals on behalf of their conference, on behalf of their team, but there's a reason that ADs are there representing, like they don't just represent their team, they represent conference and etc. But like, let's not be naive and think that, hey, they're going out to eat, or they're having a Zoom call or a one-on-one phone call and saying, hey, we this is what we're kind of thinking. And, there's ways to do it. FSU AD to the gulag. I thought, so biggest surprise, Kendall Rogers had Georgia Tech not being host simply because they were regular season champion in the number 2 RPI conference. Again, and you guys heard me talk about it last night. The idea that nowhere in any of these publications have you seen a discussion on SEC teams' records in conference being bolstered by a Missouri team that was just absolutely atrocious, right? You can talk about the ACC having 2 or 3 weak teams at the bottom. That's fine. You can talk about Big 10, Big 12 having weaker teams at the bottom and even more weaker teams. Yes, that's totally fine. But the SEC, albeit probably the deepest conference, they have probably the worst team in the Power Four in their conference as well, in Missouri. And so Missouri was basically a free 3-game sweep for any school that played them besides A&M. And now some of those teams, if you look at their record and their schedule, you think, okay, that wouldn't have any impact, like LSU, Texas, stuff like that, Arkansas. But the one that really got me is Ole Miss, because Ole Miss finished 16-14 in conference, including a 3-game sweep over Missouri. So if they play another team in the SEC, they're probably not sweeping. They either go 2 out of 3 or 1 out of 3. I mean, obviously they could get swept, but we're going to go with the most likely thing to happen. So Ole Miss very well could have been 15-15 or 14-16 in conference. And then I don't think it matters how well they do in tournament. But because they were 16-14 in conference and played well in the tournament, they get the nod for a host spot over Georgia Tech, who again was the regular season champion of the number 2 RPI conference in the country. So that was not ever talked about. I'm going to talk about that tonight when I go on the Bullpen Mafia podcast, because I think that is a point that needs to be talked about as widely as possible, because it just seemed like that never came up in any of the streams I watched, in any of the discussions about who should be a host, who shouldn't. Sorry, I got to answer this. Javi Salas is scared to do live streams. He's definitely not scared. I mean, again, I it's different, but I think Javi would do great on a live stream. It's not it's just going to be it's just going to be a pre-recorded podcast, Wiley. So it's not going to be live. I wish it would be live, because I just love doing live and it's fun interacting with chat and everything. I do think that's something that probably they'll start doing at some point, but we're going to talk. I think it's going to go live maybe Thursday, but we're going to talk just everything NCAA regionals and everything like that. So I got a lot of just like research and everything to do later this afternoon, but that should be really fun. Wiley, also not much talk about Southern Miss being second best team in much weaker conference than ACC. Yeah, that's a great point as well. I mean, Southern Miss did not win their conference regular season title or championship. But again, I mean, Southern Miss had a great overall year, but I think that's a great point. It's like, okay, but like, what is the standard? So is the Sun Belt a tougher conference than the ACC? No. Georgia Tech won the regular season title in the ACC, albeit with like a weaker schedule, generally speaking, relatively speaking, in the ACC. But Southern Miss gets the nod. Very strange. I think Missouri could take Ohio State this year. I mean, I don't know, Buck. I really don't know, dude. In my Bucks 03 fan, what's up, Bucks? In my opinion, Troy and UConn should have been in over Kentucky and OSU. Listen, I get it. I think Oklahoma State, I think that was a big surprise. Honestly, like, my gut was telling me that OSU was probably not going to be in. I think everybody kind of figured Kentucky would be in. I will say Kentucky did not play Missouri, so that 13-17 mark in the SEC was not bolstered by a 3-game sweep of Missouri. But like, I don't think you can just say you're 13-17 in the SEC, so you're in. Certainly when you don't include Virginia of the ACC. Like, in my mind, Kentucky probably should have been out if Virginia's not going to be in. Pre-recorded so they can censor out all of the knowledge they had of Biden's decline. Yeah, probably. Zach, afternoon. What's up, Zach? I believe USM didn't play the best team in their conference until the title game either. Could be wrong, though. Yes. You're right. USM did not play Coastal Carolina the entire... And those are great points, Wiley. They did not play Coastal in the regular season. So, yeah, I mean, it's just like, we can make arguments. I do think Southern Miss and Ole Miss were both the teams that were... I think people thought Southern Miss was going to be a host, even though, again, you're making great points that they probably should not have been a host, at least over Georgia Tech. They probably, I would say they probably should be a host over Ole Miss, again, just for the things I brought up before. Ole Miss had a 3-game bolster in their regular season record facing Missouri. And, there's not a whole lot of conferences out there that have a free 3-game sweep. And again, you may say, well, Missouri won 3 games, wasn't exactly free. And it's like, well, they were 0-24 before sweeping A&M. So it basically was for 8 out of 10 series. It was like you show up against Missouri, it's 3 games, you get 3 wins. Do you think Coastal was seeded too low? Miami's Future Conference had 2 teams hosting. Miami's Future Conference, huh? Do you think Coastal was seeded too low? Zach, do you mean by too low? Do you mean do you mean like they should have been seeded closer to a national seed or closer to like 16th overall? Because there's a couple ways I think you could be going with that. And the ACC had 3 teams. What does that say about the ACC? Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's another great point, Canes. I mean, the fact that the Sun Belt had more hosts than the Big 12, which is the 3rd best RPI conference. My wife's trying to distract me. Big 12 is the 3rd best RPI conference, and honestly by a pretty significant margin above the Big 10, and had no hosts. The Sun Belt, I think, was 8th best in RPI this year, and they had 2. The ACC had 3, and then the SEC had 8. This is what I don't get. Oregon went 4-0. Canes, Miami's moving to the Sun Belt? ? This is what I don't get. Oregon went 4-0 against Oregon State and was seeded lower, and Coastal went 2-0 against Clemson and was seeded lower. Well, I think the head-to-head, I think in the Oregon State conversation, I think that makes sense. I think Oregon should have been seeded above Oregon State 100%. Coastal, on the other hand, though they beat Clemson in 2 midweek games, again, it's 2 midweek games. So I don't mind that one as much. Have to run. Sun is doubleheader playoff game this afternoon. All right, good luck, Buck. Dusty, well. Welcome to the chat. Dusty is back. Zach, yes, should they have been seeded closer to a national seed? I don't know, man. I think it's hard to get a national seed when you're coming from a mid-major conference. And again, it was like the 8th best RPI conference this year. Although, I mean, listen, Coastal had an outstanding year this year. I just think the committee's it's going to be very, very, the committee's going to be hard pressed to put Coastal as a national seed. That's just a reality. Not even the Sun Belt, the bug. The bug. Dusty is back. Wiley Ballard. Canes, Big 10. When have they ever hosted? When Miami joins it, it will be 3 hosts. Yeah, and I think that's a good point. Like, where's the motivation to stay in the ACC now if you're in baseball? Did the ACC teams generally get rewarded for playing well and everything? And North Carolina wasn't even a top 4 host, and they won the ACC championship. Florida State didn't get a national seed. Clemson, gets a lower seed. Georgia Tech wins the ACC regular season title, and they don't even get a host. But you have like UCLA and Oregon just kind of beating up on Big 10 teams, and they get hosts. So it's going to be very strange over these next couple of years with, possibility of a super conference coming, everything like that, just to see what happens. Dusty, join me in getting FSU's AD deported, please. Dusty, I've been locked in my bedroom in the dark for 48 hours. Needed to step away. Darkness retreat. Majority of the ACC is already leaving. No, 100% Gaines. Like, especially, Florida State and Clemson, I know, like, obviously are trying to get into the SEC. Would you say Oregon State played the equivalent of a mid-major schedule? Yes, 100%. 100%. And to be honest, I would consider it a subpar mid-major schedule. If you just look at it. If you just look at the schedule. I mean, it is not great. Kyle, did you see DH's comments like an hour ago when it went ham on the committee and D1 guys to the AJC reporter? Send it to me, Dusty. I need to see it. I need to bring it up on chat. I want to read it. But yes, Zach, I think Oregon State, like, you got to compare Oregon State. Maybe they played a similar schedule to like a Sun Belt. Like solid, but like the Sun, and I think the Sun Belt's a great conference, but I just think by the RPI measures, it was number 8. Miami, Clemson, UNC, FSU, all bouncing. Where are they bouncing to, Kane? Are you saying they're all trying to bounce to just different conferences? Hopefully Georgia Tech can join us. Hey guys, going to miss this one. On our way to see Lilo and Stitch with grandsons. Know you're jealous. Yeah, hey, have fun. Have fun, Nancy. Canes, but like they say in desperate times, unless you are a leader, it's every man for themselves. Because of FSU and UF. DH comments were electric. Wish he said it on TV. Just sent the thread. Okay, we're going to pull this up. I know the SEC doesn't want Miami. Well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like if you go to like a Big Ten, like UCLA and Oregon did, but then all of a sudden, like if 4 ACC teams go to the Big Ten, all of a sudden the Big Ten becomes much better. But like it's kind of like, what are we doing here? All right, let me get this thread from Dusty. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to just read this one. I think Georgia Tech is a team on a mission, Zach, as far as vibes in the clubhouse. Like, I think they are very upset with the decision that was made. So here are Georgia Tech. Let me pull it up on screen so you guys can see. I'm just going to have to zoom in somewhat. Let me pull this here. All right, so we met with Georgia Tech head coach Danny Hall a bit ago. Hall not as forgiving today as he was Monday. Yellow Jackets not being selected as a regional host. The fact that the ACC champion is not hosting I just think it's ridiculous, just to be dead honest. Added Hall, I took the high road Monday on national TV, but they tried to use the fact that it was our schedule, almost like it was a fluke that we won the ACC championship. Hall, to double down with the guys that are journalists and write, or Hall, to double down with guys that are journalists and write that the schedule is a reason that we didn't host, that's just a joke. They have no idea how hard it is to win games. I don't care what league. If you win the league, you played a great you have played great throughout the season. Hall, we're watching that selection show and my team didn't react a whole heck of a lot about not hosting. I think that was kind of the message that was sent. We placed that trophy in the middle for a reason because that's a very major accomplishment to be ACC champions. Yeah, inject that into my veins. We are all getting relegated anyways here in 2 to 3 years. Unless you're a top 30 football program, you're the new Division I AA. Is it top 30, Dusty, or is it top 40? That's the question. Break off football conferences from other sports. I don't care. Yeah, that could happen. But the thing is, you want to be in that football league because you're going to get so much money. You will be able to support all the other sports. That's the thing. And you know what? I'm glad DH kind of said that. The reality again is, like, we can make the same argument in the SEC. Is like how many of the SEC teams got a free 3-game sweep against Missouri? Ole Miss being one of them. Ole Miss probably ends up at 15-15 or 14-16 in conference if they do not play Missouri in their schedule. So then I think if you're 15-15 or you're 14-16, you probably have to win the SEC championship to become a host. And because Ole Miss played Missouri, like, all of a sudden they were able to win a couple, 2 or 3 games in the SEC tournament and make a difference. The difference between Ole Miss and Tennessee is Tennessee did not play Missouri in the regular season. So their 16-14 was much more legitimate. Even though you could also nitpick against Tennessee because when they did beat Texas in the tournament, Texas pitched a guy who threw like 15 innings on the year and had 1 start. So it wasn't like Texas was throwing one of their big time guys, and Tennessee still, took, what was it, 12, 13 innings to beat them? We're coming, baby. Miami ain't going nowhere. GT needs to make Omaha this season, and I'm riding with them. Thank you for that, Kane. Thank you for your support, Canes. This is a great. How do you think Georgia Tech matches up with Western Kentucky? I think. I think obviously Georgia Tech's going to be favored. We can pull up Western Kentucky and just kind of see how they match up. I do know. I mean, listen, Western Kentucky's been very good all year. They are by no means a slouch. And listen, like, Georgia Tech is going to have, like, there's going to be things you can bring up again about Georgia Tech as well that could cause them issues in a regional. Western Kentucky has 126 doubles on the year. They're very similar offensively to Georgia Tech. They hit a lot of doubles. They have 70 home runs, 20 triples. They're OPSing over 900 as a team. They also have Ryan Weidman at the top, who has 45 stolen bases, 20 doubles, 6 triples, 10 home runs. So really the hitter that you're really worried about, again, and they have a lot of them, right? If you look at their lineup, they hit 315 as a team. This is a very offensive-minded team. Weidman, you got to keep off the base paths. He is over 90%, or he's kind of right at that 90% mark in stolen bases. And one thing I will say, I mean, looking at they don't strike out a whole lot. They do have a good on-base percentage. They have a very complete offense. They steal bases. They drive the ball. Defensively, we can look here, just see kind of how they look defensively. They have made 63 errors. So they do make an okay amount of errors. They're fielding 970 as a team, which is solid though. And then pitching wise, I mean, listen, they pitch to a 3.35 ERA. They have a 1.24 WHIP as a staff. 400. They do not strike out a lot of guys. They have less strikeouts than innings pitched. But they do only walk, like, they do not walk a lot of guys. And again, what you have to do is you have to push those numbers. Okay, what would they look like in the ACC? Certainly those pitching numbers would kind of elevate a little bit. Offensive numbers would kind of obviously regress a little bit. The question is how much, but you definitely have to throw Tate McKee game one. And I would highly consider after Brady Jones' performance last against Clemson, throwing Jalen Payton. I just think the second game is way too important. And Brady Jones, I think, again, I talked about it last night, from watching him and getting a sense and a feel, his body language, facial expressions, I think the nerves really got to him in that ACC semifinal, right? And again, that's a very important game. I think the team knew if you beat Clemson, you are 100% a host, which is probably the case. And I just think, again, you saw he kind of crumbled under the pressure. And so I think let's say you win game one against Western Kentucky and now you're playing Ole Miss. I think you have to go Jalen Payton. I think you got to go him. Because, listen, the Ole Miss crowd is going to be insane. You need to throw somebody that is tough as nails mentally. And I think you learned Brady Jones did not look good in that game. Like, he really did not look good. So it's just something to keep an eye on. Payton hasn't pitched since May 17th as well. Yeah, not great. Definitely not great. Western Kentucky, yeah, they have like 126 stolen bases. So but the thing is, you have Von Lackey at the catcher position. So as long as your pitchers are, quick enough to the plate, like, they're not going to be swiping a lot of bags on Von Lackey. UNC has landed 2 portal players already. What else is new? Kyle, do you think that's Jones' makeup or first-time bright lights and it's out of his system? I don't want him for Ole Miss game either way. Unfortunately, that's usually just makeup. I mean, that's usually, generally speaking, can it be like a one-time thing? I would say typically, like, your guys, like look at Drew Burress, like, he just shows up big. It doesn't mean he's going to have success every time. What I look at is like body language and facial expressions, and I just got the feeling that he was scared. His mindset was, I don't want to lose this game for the team. I don't want to mess up. I don't want to walk another guy, instead of like, I'm going to get this guy right here. Right. And that's the mentality difference. And you can tell that in body language. You can tell that in facial expressions. The guys that step up to the plate in a big situation offensively, and they do not look scared. Like, they look like, I'm about to get this done. And for me, I think that's a makeup thing. The ACC arms race has begun. I am not sure who I would start versus Western Kentucky, man. I mean, again, I think you could say, you start Jalen Payton. I do not think you can start Brady Jones against until like game 3. That's my opinion. I will say, and we can pull this up, I'd consider starting Jones for Western Kentucky, but saving Tate for elimination game 2 would be so painful. Yeah. No, I think you have to go Tate, McKee, Payton, or Payton McKee. From what I saw this past weekend, I don't know if you can do that. Not sure if you guys mentioned it yet, but Troy and UConn snubs are tough. Committee saying Sunbelt is good enough for 2 hosts, but not Troy. And saying Big 12 isn't good enough to host, but let all their bubble teams in. Yeah, it's definitely was a weird one. You just can't do Jones. Yes. Yeah, Burke. I mean, I think Troy, the problem with Troy is they got swept by Southern Miss to end the year. Like, that was the big issue. That killed their RPI. And then UConn, yeah, I fully agree. I think UConn should have been in. That was just a complete snub. I mean, again, it was just everything, Big 10 got 2 hosts, even though they're like the 4th best conference RPI-wise. Big 12 got none. ACC regular season champ didn't get a host in the number 2 conference. And then a couple basically 500 teams in the SEC, one of which was only one game above 500 because they swept Missouri, get hosts. So it's just it was just kind of a ridiculous, and my whole thing is like this the way these are chosen has to be eliminated. We have to seed 32 teams, because the idea that Florida again, like, it would eliminate all the like, wow, Florida got sent to Coastal Carolina, okay, oh, Florida State got matched with Oregon State, okay. If Jones is throwing to his potential, then you go Tate, Payton, Patel combo for Ole Miss. Yes, but that's the issue that I'm worried about. Part of me thinks you start Brady Jones. If it's bad out of the chute, then at least you know Jones to Patel if needed. Yeah, I mean, but you have to be ready to pull the trigger quickly. The problem with when it started to really go off the rails, I think Jones was kind of left in there. And I think and this is I want to bring up these stats. I was looking at this last night, guys, and it's actually pretty. Like, this just goes to show you what, like, Georgia Tech's, if you look at Georgia Tech's pitching numbers, which are kind of going up again, like they're starting to go up. This is the issue with Georgia Tech's pitching numbers, and I'm going to pull these up for you guys 1 second here. And let me just read some of these guys. I'm thinking the same thing, Dusty. Maybe game one being mid-major knocks off the brand name edge for Jones. I don't think so. You're pitching at Ole Miss. You're in a regional. Like, it's going to be a very high, like, like it's, you got to win game one. That's a very high pressure game. Like, it's not, I'm pitching against Western Kentucky. It's like, this is the end of the year. Like, these games matter or we're going home. Troy lost one series all year, but got swept and then lost to Old Dominion in the first round. That 0-4 stretch basically destroyed their RPI, 100%. Georgia Tech and TCU were probably the 17 and 18 teams, but got sent to number 10 and 8. Yes. Again, crazy. How good is this Western Kentucky guy, D1 effing us? Western Kentucky is very good. They are very good. Again, when you look at their numbers, you have to understand they're not playing in the ACC. So those numbers would be different, but it's a very strong all-around team. They play solid defense. They really hit. They hit for power. They steal bases, and then pitching has been really well. Ted has been released. Get him, boy. Kyle, the 4 o'clock game versus Western Kentucky is going to be very, very different than 7:30 versus Ole Miss. Yeah, but all those Ole Miss fans are going to be there. Like, all those Ole Miss fans are going to be in the parking lot at 9 a.m. I think we have to bank on Tate being healthy for Ole Miss. I mean, again, that's like the thing is this. That's a very understandable strategy, but if you lose to Western Kentucky, now you're one loss away from being done. Alabama was the number 17 team. Yeah, I mean, it's probably the case, right? It's probably another barely 500 team in the SEC. Okay, so let me pull this up, guys. I think this is a scary statistic if you look at Georgia Tech's pitching staff. Okay, so over the last few weeks, this has gone up to getting closer to 5. Right, this is a 4.7 ERA. You're getting really close to walking 1 per every two innings, which is like that's gone up as well. They're still striking out a lot of guys, but here's the thing that really is interesting for me. How many pitchers have below a 5 ERA on this team? 1, 2, 3. Cooper McMullen has 7 innings on the year, so you really can't even count that. Caden Campbell and Caden Spivey. So there's 5 pitchers with below a 5 ERA on the entire team, which again just speaks to what I've been saying all year. Like, Georgia Tech has like 1 or 2 bullpen arms you can really depend on, and then it's just like flip the coin and see what happens. So, like, the issue for this is, like, look at Jalen Payton. One thing with Payton scares you is he has been walking more guys recently, but he's not giving up runs. Brady Jones got hit around, obviously did not look good against Clemson. And then Tate McKee probably threw his best start of the year as far as his overall stuff, how he played, everything like that. But this is concerning. Like this, look at this pitching staff. You have the vast majority of the bullpen is above a 5 ERA. So there's not a whole lot of depth if you're looking to if you have to go deep in this regional. You're doubting the tailgate stamina in Oxford. They won't give up 3 hours of drinking to watch non-Ole Miss sports. But that might be true. Ted, don't let Kyle be negative. Give Brady the ball for Western Kentucky and hope we shell that Western Kentucky ace. Brady goes deep. We are set to win the regional. If he doesn't, then it wasn't our year. Got to keep the house to throw at Ole Miss. My only issue with that, and again, I'm not saying that's not a decent idea. I would rather go Payton than Brady Jones, unless they're planning on using Payton out of the pen. So it depends on how they're going to use Payton. But Brady Jones really hasn't gone deep all year. I mean, like at best, he's going to give you 6 innings. So, like Brady Jones, the problem, like again, I'm just going off instinct here. This is off pure like baseball instinct, old school stuff. I did not like what I saw from him in the ACC tournament, which was in a fairly high pressure game. This game Friday is way more pressure. Way more pressure. I'm not talking about fans in the stands. There's nobody in the stands at the ACC tournament. He still looked very nervous and very scared. That will be the exact same thing times 2 or 3 in this regional. I just want to feel what I felt when Drew Burress hit that nuke against Clemson. I don't want to feel what I felt the next inning. I want to have Brady Jones, Maddox inbound. Okay. But I want to have Payton in case McKee shits against Ole Miss. That makes sense. Can confirm SEC tailgate is built different. Correct, Dusty. Plus have to factor in Ole Miss fan Greyhound bus commute time from the train. Won't be there at 4. Okay, Kyle. So when do you suggest we start Brady Jones? Well, I think the question is Payton going to be used as a starter? If there's any thought that Payton is going to be used as a piggyback off one of the starters, then you have to throw Brady Jones game 1, in my mind. Because certainly he will not pitch well against Ole Miss in a primetime game. That, in my mind, like that's just not going to happen. So if you're going to use Payton as a piggyback guy, well, that's my point, Dusty. What game is going to be is not going to be important from here on out? That's my point. Is if you are starting him, and it's a little bit. What I can say is this: like at least at the beginning of the regional, like you have 0 losses. So if you lose that game, you're still in. But so there's maybe less pressure in the opening game. Again, I just don't feel good about it. I'm not saying there's any other options. Like, I get that. But it depends on, is Payton going to be used as a starter? Because then, I mean, think about it like this, guys. Like, you get to game 3, and Patel and Brady Jones have pitched. And Tate McKee and Jalen Payton have pitched. Where are we going? Caden Spivey? Riley Stanford? That's what I'm thinking. I mean, it's like you have to... You either go, I guess you go all in on winning the first 2 games, and then it's just like hope for the best. Kyle wants to leave Brady off the 12 and 27 man. No, I don't. Let me be clear about that. I don't want to do that. I want to save Payton in as the escape hatch because he at least has thrown out of the bullpen all this year. Yes. Yeah, I think that's going to be the decision. The decision is going to be, do you use Payton as a starter, or do you just go all in on winning the first 2 games? But this is why Georgia Tech is really not built for a regional. Like, you do not have the depth of arms to do it. Kyle instead wants to save Brady Jones for the winner take all. Well, I mean, again, if you get to the winner take all, that's pretty good. And you still, because my whole point is this. If you go all in on winning the first 2 games, which I totally get, like that's definitely a strategy that can work, you have nobody after that. That's my point. I think we need to view this like a formula to sweep. Our only sweep formula is to absolutely rake game 1 and throw 2 arms, then have day 2 starter go deep, then have game 3 be a crapshoot with every other arm we have. Christ. Yeah, I mean, Ted, you're not wrong. And that's really been the formula for Georgia Tech all year, is hope that you don't have to throw a Patel or a Payton in game 1. That's really been the formula, is like get up to a big enough lead that you don't have to throw any of your 2 bullpen arms, or at least burn them for like 3 innings, and then save them for deeper in the series or in the regional. Yeah, we have to get to that game 3 as a winner. Figure it out from there. Yeah. When will Mississippi State hire a coach? Definitely after they're knocked out, right? Definitely whenever that happens. Whenever they are knocked out, that search will kind of go that day it'll be full steam ahead, and who knows how long. And it also depends, Zach, on who the guys they're interviewing are, right? If the guy that, like we saw with Schloss last year, that was already done and everything, but it couldn't be announced until A&M was taken out in the final of the College World Series. So it depends on if they already have a guy in mind, if they think they have a deal done, whenever that team's eliminated. So it could go on for another month. It just depends on the candidates involved. When will Mississippi, or Zach, after Louisville gets knocked out? Yeah, if Dan McDonnell's, and I do think that is a sleeper pick, just because I think there are some of the kind of, again, like some of the established, really good, older, but not like too old coaches in the ACC that are starting to see the writing on the wall and think like, probably need to jump to the SEC. Like, I think that is definitely a thing. Danny, D1 Baseball has Georgia Tech ranked 5th in their region. What? Ted, what sort of threat can we make against Georgia Tech AD to ensure James is next head coach? I will denounce Georgia Tech if he doesn't get the job. Everything I've heard, Ted, is that is probably what's going to happen. Again, nothing concrete on that. I will say this, like, if you ask any coach around the industry, like, this is the most tight-lipped coaching search/retirement thing ever. Like, nobody's posting about it. D1 Baseball has not done a hot board for it, which again is kind of insane. And so it's just like, it's weird how nobody knows anything. Yes, Dusty, Louisville head coach gone. Don't let them sleep on this. Kyle, Danny was making a joke because there's only 4 teams. Yeah, I understood that. I didn't know if he was talking about like both regional matchups combined, so the 8 teams. But that would have been ridiculous anyway. And can you tell me the last time we were 2-0 in a regional? Two and 0 in a regional. Would that be like 2009, 2010? Kyle, a little bit in the blender today. No, I'm not. Thanks, Dusty, Danny Burke. Oh my gosh, Dusty's back in the chat. What else is new? Let me see. I'm trying to, all these, there's so many of these. All right, let's see. Last time we had a chance to last time we had a chance to the game win and make the super. Win the game and make the super. 2019, Dusty says 2-0 in regional, right? Or 2018. Wiley Ballard says 2010 is correct for last time we were 2-0. 2013, last time we were in a winner take all against Vandy. Dusty says Buck on short rest. 2019, I think we lost the 1-0 game on the Auburn walk-off. My source is reputable. Who do you think in this lineup is gritty? I feel like we have the talent, but the only killers are Burris and Lodi's. I think Von Lackey's been great all year. He's had great at-bats. I think Kent Schmidt has really good at-bats, really professional at-bats. Carson Kearse, I do think, has really good at-bats, but he also sometimes will take 3-2 count, will just take a pitch that's easy to foul off. Um, but I think honestly, that is kind of the identity of Georgia Tech's offense, is that it is gritty. Obviously, like freshmen like Caleb Daniel and Alex Hernandez will have some at bats where you see them as freshmen. Dylan Rogers as well is going to swing and miss. Like, he's a young guy, he's got power, but he's going to swing and miss. Will Baker has been pretty impressive, but again, he's going to have some at bats where you shake your head because he's a freshman and he doesn't have elite plate discipline, but he does have juice in the bat and he's left-handed. So I think Georgia Tech really, like 5 out of the 9 hitters I would consider gritty and really worked at bats. I do think Lodi sometimes gets a little too antsy. I think Lodi's, for me, one of the reasons his average has dropped so much, and obviously he missed some time with an injury, but I do think sometimes he kind of gets too excited and goes after a first pitch like breaking ball. And to me, like, he has to understand he's going to get kind of pitched around. Like, people do not want to go right after him, and he's got to be willing to wait for a good pitch to hit or just pass the bat back to the guy behind him. Georgia Tech has 4 pitchers ranked in the top 150. In 2019, we were a 3-seed host and was the Auburn. We were a 3-seed host and was the Auburn walk-off game, and then almost lost to Coastal to go 1-2. Georgia Tech has 4 pitchers ranked in the top 150. The next best is ranked 603, Spivey. Yeah, Lackey is clutch. Curse bunts fire me up. Daniel takes hacks, but isn't very situational. Well, the problem with Daniel is he's got a little too much vertical bat angle. Like his path is very vertical. And again, like, I'm not saying he needs to go to like flatten it out, but if he went from like here to here, he's hitting he's getting much more contact. He's hitting way more home runs. And because everything is like, he either has to hit it perfectly clean or he top spins the line drive. And with his bat angle too, it's harder for him to drive it to the opposite field. But I do think Caleb Daniel does have a good approach. I just think his swing plane kind of has issues. And again, what I mean by issues is that it could be better. 3rd national seed 2019 is what I meant. Canes, stop drinking mainstream media Kool-Aid, sheep. Drew Rogers getting hot at the right time. Hopefully, yeah, he's looked. I mean, he's hitting the ball in the barrel, man. He's looked great. In comparison, Miami has 2 pitchers in the top 95 and 5 pitchers under 1,000. Well, that's not really a surprise, right? I mean, Miami does have a few really good arms. In comparison, let's see here. They have Darius as the number 605 pitcher and Brian Walters as number 510. That's sick, Canes. Nobody cares. That's 64 analytics data. Can we bring Stephen Reed back for the regional? I don't know. I mean, listen, I coached Stephen Reed for 2 years, and the one thing that was frustrating about him is that he had so much talent, and really all he cared about was hitting and getting big in the weight room. I remember his freshman year, I told him, you know, if you want to play professional baseball, like, you need to get better in the outfield. You need to work on your speed. You need to like be in the outfield during BP, getting reps, tracking down balls. That's the only way you're going to get better. You know, because it's very hard to make the big leagues and even get drafted if teams consider you a DH. And he didn't ever really decide to work on that. And he was also the last guy to the field every practice, every game. And I pulled him aside and said, listen, dude, like, you don't need to get here 2 hours early, but you need to be at the field like an hour before, like, we stretch for practice, for games. Like, it is a very bad look when you show up 5 minutes before stretch and you're like rushing to put your clothes on. It doesn't seem like you're invested, and it doesn't seem like you care. And, that the rest was kind of history. We've got postseason ball to talk, and you're yapping about rankings and NIL. Let's talk some regional baseball. Canes, I still have that screenshot of you, WBE. Canes, you have made the WBE list. Oh, no, Canes. Getting big and hitting bombs sounds kind of sick, but yeah, he didn't care. Well, yeah, it is. But, like, when that's the only thing you care about, was very, was not coachable. Did not take any kind, like, literally constructive criticism, like, not like, hey, you're terrible, like, constructive criticism. Did not take it well. Can you walk me through your bracket? I haven't filled one out yet. I'll probably do that in the next couple of days, Ted. So when I do, I'll bring it up on stream and show it off and just talk through what I think. But I haven't filled mine out yet. It's portal season, baby. Join D1 Baseball Haters Bracket Challenge. Are you crazy, Ted? That's Loser Talk. Canes already giving up on your team. Why would you do anything D1 Baseball does? Actually, quite a few of the D1 guys have Georgia Tech in their Omaha 8, which is interesting. 3 have them in there. Four have them in there. Wow. Interesting. Canes, you say one more word to Ted and you won't have any fingernails left. He's a GT man, patriot, and off limits. I made an ACC supremacy bracket, so they will have to send me prizes when the ACC teams ball out. Yeah, again, I think the narrative, and I honestly, I think D1 baseball definitely has some part to play in Tech not getting a host, and it was the narrative on all their streams. If any of the committee members watched their Nerdcast streams, and anytime they discussed Georgia Tech, it was, man, they really don't have a very strong ACC schedule, and all of that. And then, like, again, they would talk about Oregon State and be like, man, I really like this schedule. I really like it. They play a lot of games on the road. I'm just sitting there like, guys, can we not talk about a road game against Cal State Northridge? Like, that is not a peer type opponent for Oregon State. It is not. Wiley Ballard, I love everyone in the media saying nice things about giving DH a proper send-off, but that didn't apply to hosting. What a great man. He deserves the best, but yeah, what a great man. Deserves respect. Won the ACC regular season title. Boom. No host for you. No host for you. See you in Ole Miss. We'll send you down I-20 to Oxford. But yeah, definitely interesting. All right, guys, I have to go. Thanks for everybody joining the chat today. Remember, we still need 6 super chats for the 12-hour stream. But we got plenty of days to do it. I will be doing the podcast tonight with Bullpen Mafia, so probably may do a stream after that. I'll let you guys know. But thanks for joining the stream today, guys. We'll be back again